Taoiseach, I want to turn from the national to the international. And in a month's time, yourself, the ministers and the officials will head around the world for St Patrick's Day. And there will be over 300 venues around the world who will be lit green for that day. I think that's some achievement and some recognition for a small country with a small population. And I know that one of the items on the agenda will be to secure the 192 votes necessary to get a seat on the Security Council. And I have two questions on this. First of all, why do we want the seat? And I know it was decided back in 2005. And secondly, what is it going to cost Ireland? And I'm not just talking in terms of euro to secure the seat. And I'm asking those questions in the context of some strange, what I'd call un-Ireland decisions that have been made in recent times. And I wonder if we're going to see more of those type of decisions in order to get the seat. And I have two examples. Our neutrality puts us in a very strong position, enhanced by the reputation of our troops in UN-mandated peace missions. And despite protestations to the contrary, that neutrality is under threat, whether we talk about Shannon or PESCO or battle groups. And we see this increasing drawing of Ireland into the European securitisation agenda. And also that overwhelming vote in the European Parliament on a report some months ago emphasising PESCO's compatibility with NATO and that the EU should be capable of launching autonomous military missions. And my second example is the decision to recognise a self-appointed person as President of Venezuela, whose previous role in the National Assembly was akin to that of Speaker in other parliaments, and a self-proclaimed President who is now openly calling for violence on the streets. I was waiting for Ireland's voice to condemn the sanctions that have been causing the problems in Venezuela, and waiting on Ireland to condemn the threat of military invasion. But no, Ireland joined European countries in condemning President Maduro. And I'm asking, are they the prices that we're paying in exchange for votes? And then the organisation we want to be part of. Permanent members with unprecedented power with the veto. And we see the political games that go on between the 3 permanent NATO members and the other 2 members. And there is a litany of failures of the Security Council to make the world more secure. A former UN Commissioner for Human Rights spoke about the pernicious use of the veto, leading to the most prolific slaughterhouses, referencing Syria, the Congo, Burundi, Myanmar, and before that Biafra, Cambodia, Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, and the most recent blatant example is Yemen. And then the initiative in 2014 to call on the Permanent 5 to voluntarily pledge not to use the veto in the case of genocide and crimes against humanity, that came to nothing. So our unique voice is one that has been non-aligned, impartial and humanitarian focused. So why are we risking that for a seat on the Security Council, which has a serious democratic deficit and which could require us to make decisions that are not in keeping with a sovereign independent republic?
And thanks for raising this very important issue. As far as the government is concerned, I know we have the support of the Oireachtas, or almost all the Oireachtas in this regard. We will seek election to the UN Security Council for the 2021-2022 term. As a country, we've served on the UN Security Council in the past, and I believe we've made a very valuable contribution to the UN and the UN Security Council, and we want to be able to do so again. Part of that is a reflection of our ambition to double Ireland's global footprint and increase our influence around the world. Part of it is about our commitment to multilateralism, precisely because we believe that the greatest challenges and problems that the world faces are best dealt with by countries working together, whether it's through the United Nations or through the European Union. It's linked to our commitment to peacekeeping, which I think we're all rightly very proud of in this House, but peacekeeping that we've done with the United Nations in places like Lebanon, but also peacekeeping and peace operations that we've been involved in through the European Union. In Mali, where I had the opportunity to visit earlier this year in the Mediterranean under Operation Sophia, where we've been disrupting human trafficking and people smuggling and rescuing migrants from the sea. Those weren't UN operations, they were EU operations, but I don't consider them a violation of our neutrality. I'm very proud that we've taken part in those missions in the Mediterranean and in Mali. It also speaks to our commitment to international development, the fact that we've increased our budget for international development this year by over 100 million, striving to reach that target of 0.7% of GNI, because we believe that the best way to deal with many of the world's problems is to build capacity, build democracy, build human rights and build economic opportunity in developing countries. And we're committed to that, and we want to bring that vision and voice to the top table in the world. It's also because of our commitment to free trade and free enterprise. Nothing has lifted more people out of poverty in the history of the world than free enterprise and free trade. And we've seen how in China and Asian countries, hundreds of millions of people lifted out of poverty through free trade and free enterprise. We want to bring that voice to the top table of the world as well. And we also want to bring our voice and our commitment to human rights and equality to that top table too, whether it's equality among the genders or LGBT rights. And we believe Ireland has a unique voice and a unique perspective to offer in that regard. And that is the backdrop to our decision to seek a seat on the UN Security Council. In terms of Venezuela, we strongly support the people of Venezuela in their demands for free elections, their demands for the restoration of democracy, human rights and freedoms, their demands on the restoration of economic opportunity. And we very much listen to the Venezuelan community here in Ireland as well, and I'd invite people to do that if they haven't done so already. There are always differences of opinion, but the vast majority of Venezuelans living here in Ireland know exactly where they stand on this issue, and we should listen to them too. In taking the decision to recognise a new interim president of Venezuela, we did so recognising that the Venezuelan constitution allows for an interim president to be elected by Congress should the directly elected president be deemed illegitimate. And we did so not on our own, alongside lots of other EU countries, including neutral EU countries, alongside the Lima Group, made up of Canada and a very large number of Latin American countries too.
Perhaps you, as Speaker here, would like to proclaim yourself as President at some point and expect the rest of Europe to recognise you. Ireland has a respected voice, and it comes from our history, our culture, the empathy that we can bring to other countries because we have experienced famine and conflict and displacement. And you mentioned your recent visit to Africa, and I think that shows up the contradictions. In Mali, visiting troops, but why are those troops part of an EU training mission, which could be seen as propping up France's interest in Mali's uranium? And then you come to Ethiopia, and it's back to the traditional Irish role, Irish aid, which is about empowerment of women, rural development, social protection and health. I think we are in danger of losing that respected voice that we have because we have such positive relationships with other countries. And I think there's more appropriate arenas for Ireland to keep up that reputation and good name, not on the Security Council and not at the price we appear to be paying in order to get those votes.
I'm not sure if the Deputy really meant the way that came across, but we're not paying for any votes. That's not at all what's happening here. And I would hope, I have a thick skin, but I would hope that our hard-working diplomats in the UN and around the world don't take that the way you said it. Perhaps it's not the way you meant it. In terms of philosophy here, I don't see a conflict between being involved in peacekeeping and peace support operations on the one hand and international development on the other. I see what we do in Mali and Ethiopia as mutually complementary. International development is worth nothing without security. And security will never last without international development and economic opportunity and freedom for people. I see these things working together. And we can do nothing for the refugees fleeing Eritrea in the camps in Ethiopia if you don't have security in Ethiopia and Eritrea. So they have to go hand in hand. Security as well as international development, democracy, human rights and economic opportunity. And I don't see a conflict there. And you know, I think it would be an error of philosophy and foreign policy to say that we only do and will only be involved in international development. But if guerrillas come in or an offensive government comes in and overruns and sets fire to all our projects and knocks down the schools, that we don't care. That's not what we do.